Well, welcome everyone to our August meeting. We did have a special meeting starting at 6 o'clock, and this is our regular City Council meeting here. Present time is 7 p.m., so welcome to those that are tuning in and watching us on whatever platform or WCG TV, and certainly to all members of council and staff that are joining us here in the council chamber. We're still physically distanced throughout our big council chamber, still abiding by all of the precautions recommended to us. So without further ado, first item of business, Madam Clerk.
Roll call, Your Worship. I've taken the roll and all members of council are present with the exception of Councillor Desjardins.
Thank you. Next item, please.
A motion to adopt this evening's agenda, Your Worship.
Moved by Councillor Parker, seconded by Councillor Lupke. Any changes or additions? Not seeing any. We'll call for the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next item, please.
Under the order of recognitions, Your Worship, a note regarding the passing of former Councillor Corey Roberts.
Thank you very much. Certainly a great deal of sadness among many within the City of Brandon, both the community and the offices of the City of Brandon, and many members of council that on August the 1st of this year we lost former City Councillor Corey Roberts at the tender age of 51 years of age. He did serve as the Rosser Ward Councillor from 2010 to 2014. Certainly had a very big commitment to downtown. It was a very important part of his work with the council, among many other things. Certainly maintained a great number of friendships among the colleagues that he served with, and so he's also well known for having started Clancy's in downtown Brandon a number of years back, and was also a manager at Sokol Manor, assisted living facility, as I understand. And so our condolences and sympathies go out to his wife Bettina, his 5 kids, his parents, his sister, and their families. And so if I'd ask City Council just for a moment of silence in honor of our fallen colleague Corey Roberts. Thank you. And moving on to the next piece of business, Madam Clerk.
The adoption of the minutes of the regular meeting held July 12th, 2021.
Moved by Councillor Cameron, seconded by Councillor Cullen. Any errors or omissions? Not seeing any. We'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item, please.
Under the order of presentations, Your Worship, we have Laurie Unruh of Aberdeen Avenue regarding the safety of the intersection at 9th Street and Aberdeen.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Ms. Unruh. Please come ahead. And
Your Worship, Mayor Crest, honorable members, the first picture that I'm going to show you happened in October 2012. And a car hit my house right by the front door. Following picture shows how much it goes in. And you can see that the back of the car, you can see a garden. I had just been weeding that garden 10 minutes prior to this happening. I went into the house to get water, and all of a sudden I had a big crash. The only damage on this accident was a crack in my inside hall closet, which wasn't too bad, but it scared the living daylights out of me. I have taken that front garden out due to the fact that I felt my safety was in concern. Every time people wheel around that corner, they're screeching their tires, they're going too fast, they're gassing it. The next incident, another picture of it. You can see the garden right there. The next incident was July 19th, 2021. Inside my house. The hot water heater was 2 years old. It's destroyed. 1.5-year-old furnace has to be replaced, not knowing the internal damages, and for safety, it's for gas. The ductwork was damaged. It has to be replaced. And you can see boarding along the wall above the hot water tank. That's all what Kankade put in. That's where the car come flying in. It also took some water pipes out. Carpet in the bedroom right beside the water tank. The wall's gone. But the carpet in the bedroom has to be replaced. All the electric has to be inspected. The gas line has to be inspected. Supports for the main beam, 3 of them, 2 to 3 of them were ripped out. And some personal property was taken, damaged. And I'll show you some more pictures of this damage. Oops. Don't know what's going on. Because of all this damage, I am also concerned about my house insurance. House insurance companies can drop you just like that after 2 crashes in your house. Especially this one now that all the outside has to be dug so that they can get down and put all the supports back in. It's a very costly, extensive damages that were done. Oh, I got it working. Here's some more pictures of the damages. As you can see, I've got grass growing into the bedroom now. This is the beam that they had to put up, Kankade had to put up to support the main beam. Water pipes that are cracked. My idea is to put bollards all along my front yard and along the side of it. It's the only way that I can prevent any more damage to my house and to make me feel safe inside. I have a daughter that has MS, that has got mobility issues. She lives in the basement because she finds it cooler, and MS patients like it cooler. I want to move her upstairs, but she says no. And this is what the bollards would look like. I did a arts and craft thing. I rolled up some brown paper, painted it black, and then put a little bit of yellow paint on top. So, and they're on garden stakes, so they're not straight up and down, but that's kind of gives you the idea of what it would look like. It's what I have to do. Now, I sat in my vehicle, and you can see the stop sign on the other side, and you can see the bollards are not in view at all. They are not obstructing anything in traffic. And that's about pretty well all my presentation. I have spoken to the traffic and safety engineer this morning. He wanted some concerns brought up. And he said he would not put bollards up, so it's going to be $2,000 to $3,000 expense to me, just to keep my property safe. I find that this road, 9th Street, it's been redone, got too much traffic on it. It gets balled up. We need another main street, maybe cut right through the cemetery to get onto Highway 10. To get to the mall faster. The school kids will not go down 1st Street. Too far. Plus they want to do wheelies around the the traffic circle. What else can I say? I am worried about, because I'm putting boards in my yard, I'm not protecting any of the pedestrians, the small kids that are riding their bikes, the boy that's gone out to take his dog for a walk, a young mom that's pushing her stroller with a brand new baby in it. Either one of these people could have been killed in either one of these accidents, especially this last one. People, the city needs to put in a place, build a place for new learners driving. Get them off the residential streets. Build something for them. And make the residential streets safe for all of us, for the taxpayers, for the people that are using the sidewalks, everything. I also found out that this intersection has no crosswalk. Why would that be? There should be a crosswalk. If this is a main street and it's being used for kids to go to school and back and forth, there should be crosswalks on this intersection. There isn't any. If you put traffic lights up, you're going to increase the speeding because people will try and jump the lights. I have been told this morning by the traffic safety engineer that there's no room for a traffic circle. And they think just traffic lights. Well, traffic lights won't do it. At 3:30, all four corners are blocked up with traffic. It's getting ridiculous. And we haven't even gotten the teenagers from the high school yet. It's difficult for me to get out of my driveway due to the fact that people don't stop, come to a dead stop at the intersections. They just roll through them. I can barely get out of my driveway. I have to make my appointments at 10 or later in the morning. I can't do it when the school kids are going to school. I think that's all I've got to say. I hope you guys can help me out.
Okay. So thank you very much, Ms. Unruh, for a very thorough presentation, complete with photographs. And just so council knows, she's left us a hard copy of all the photographs, and we'll make sure that engineering has these for their file as well. So, but if you don't mind, in case there's any questions that any member of council might have specifically about your presentation, about this almost unthinkable situation, you know, in terms of like we don't think we don't think that lightning can strike twice, and you know, very, you know, rather unusual situation for a house to be struck by a car, but it does happen once in a while, but twice in the same home is quite remarkable. So, but I will open up the floor to council if there are any questions, and I know Councillor Chaboyer has been, you know, engaged in this and looking at the situation. I did come, I'd been away, but today I made sure I had time to come up and have a look, and I could see your areas hoarded in there. Hopefully they're going to get you fixed up fairly soon, but I'll open it for questions right now. If there are any. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Ms. Unruh. This possibly maybe is a question for, you know, members of the police service or Mr. Unruh, but both vehicles that had struck the house, were they coming from the same direction? Like, is there a way that,
No.
Is there a certain direction that's worse than another, or is it just?
The last one blew a stop sign.
Okay.
And a vehicle hit her because he had the right of way. He had already stopped legally.
Okay.
This is what I've been told. He had already stopped legally. He was going north on 9th Street.
Okay.
She was going west on Aberdeen. She blew the four-way stop sign, and he hit her because she went flying in front of him, and he hit her back end, which made her car turn and directly into my house. And I would ask, if anybody's got any ins with the engineers, can you please tell them to hurry up with the dig permits and all the other inspections that they've got to do? Because hotel life is the pits here in town.
Right.
The TV is crap.
Take it you're staying in a hotel while they get your home
Yeah,
Okay.
I've been there 3 weeks and I'm tired of it.
Other questions that councillors may have? I did have one, and again, not to really be entering into your personal business. You did mention insurance and house insurance. Is this really being put upon your house insurance? As it's a vehicle, normally been my understanding the MPI would be involved in this, and it would be on the motorist's insurance?
The first time that I went through this, I phoned up MPI, and MPI told me, the woman on the phone told me, well, we don't do that. I said, well, you better, because you've got third-party insurance. That's what I'm paying for. And I don't know this lady. This lady's a stranger to me. This car is a stranger to me. And she said, well, we'd fix it, but there'd be depreciation on the age of the house. So I went to Guild Insurance, and they told me, no. We'll go through the house insurance, and then your house insurance will go after MPI, and that's how it's done.
Yeah.
But at any given time, if your house insurance turns around and says, hey, that's kind of a weird corner, you're having 2 accidents now, we're dropping you. And they can do that.
Okay. Other questions? Just certainly one that, we will be, and I know that our, from our engineering department, our traffic specialist, I believe has, reached out to you and has surveyed the situation, looked at the, statistics in the area and some of the, but, we'll make sure that all of the considerations in terms of safety, like you point out, not just for your home, but people in the area. It is a busy intersection, probably getting busier. I've been there a number of times, including today. I came by to have a look, and so if there are other measures that can be implemented, we would certainly want to look at that. And also, I think our planning department, could probably work with you a little bit on your own ideas, about other things that can, protect your property. Maybe there's some more cost-effective considerations that, our planning and engineering department might be able to identify to help you through this as well. So
I would appreciate that. I've done some research on putting big boulders out in my front yard. And they say, don't do that, because if they're not the right size and not right shape, you can send a car up into your roof. We don't want that.
good to know, right? Yeah. Okay, if there are not any further questions of Ms. Unruh, I think we'll thank you for your presentation. Certainly have our kind of sympathies for the predicament that has occurred there, and we'll continue to work with you to see if there are any other methods that can help to provide you a little more peace of mind in your home. But hopefully lightning doesn't strike 3 times. So,
Thank you so much.
thank you very much. And motion to receive would be in order, please. Councillor Chaboyer.
I move that the presentation of Lori Unruh with respect to the safety of the intersection of 9th Street and Aberdeen Avenue and potential solutions to protect the adjacent properties and citizens be received.
Seconded by Councillor Cameron. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next item, please.
To the order of public hearings, Your Worship, we have a public hearing for bylaw number 7295, which is to borrow funds for the purpose of constructing an outdoor field complex.
Thank you very much. So this is a little more cumbersome in these times when we do ask people to signify, certainly they do have the opportunity to make an appointment, such as our last speaker obviously did, and I don't believe that we're aware of any people applying or signifying that they're planning on coming to the public hearing, but I'll just pause for a minute in the event somebody comes bursting through the door. I don't think that's likely going to happen, but we're not really accustomed to procedures of a non-public hearing. I don't know what we'd call this. So Again, not seeing any, I think a motion to close the public hearing then would be in order. Moved by Councillor Barry, seconded by Councillor Parker. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next item, please.
Also under the order of public hearings, Your Worship, the hearing regarding bylaw number 7312, which is the borrowing of funds for the renovating the basement of 638 Princess Avenue or A.R. McDermott Building.
Thank you very much. And again, similar condition arises. We weren't made aware of anyone that wished to speak on this one either. And so it would seem that we won't have any speakers on this public hearing either. So again, a motion to conclude that would be in order as well, please. Moved by Councillor Cameron, seconded by Councillor Lupke. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next item, please.
Committee reports, Your Worship, and we have a committee of the whole report from our earlier meeting.
Thank you very much.
So I would just advise Council that City Council met in a committee of the whole meeting closed to the public earlier this evening to consider a report from the Director of Planning and Buildings with respect to the purchase of 1800 Richmond Avenue East and 2001 17th Street East, whereby a recommendation was made by Councillor Chaboyer and agreed upon by the City, by Council sitting as a committee of the whole. And that motion was to accept the offer, or that the offer was accepted to purchase that property for $1.63 million.
Thank you very much. And I believe we will be dealing with this under general business, or are we dealing with the motion?
It will be under tonight.
Pardon?
So we need a motion to accept the report, and then the actual motion can be adopted.
Okay. So first of all, a motion to accept the report of the Committee of the Whole, please. Moved by Councillor Parker, seconded by Councillor Lupke. Any discussion on acceptance of the report? Call for the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Then a motion, the motion with the level of matter of business would be in order. Councillor Chaboyer.
Thank you, Worship. I move the funding of $1,630,000, $1,600,000 purchase price plus $30,000 for a land transfer tax be approved for the purchase of 272 acres of land at 1800 Richmond Avenue East and 2100 17th Street East, whereby $1,430,000 shall be expended from the Civic Land Acquisition Reserve and $200,000 from the Storm Sewer Reserve.
Thank you. Secretary, please. Councillor Cullen. Mover wish to speak?
Just briefly, Your Worship, this is an incredibly important acquisition for the people of Brandon because we are looking at securing this property for a retention pond and to help manage our stormwater and drainage system. So I think it's a critical importance now with the global warming and what we're seeing happening with the storms, that we definitely need this retention pond sooner than later, and I hope that all council will support this acquisition.
Thank you very much. Other discussion? I would just add to Councillor Chaboyer's comments, and she's spot on. Many people in the south end of the city certainly will be, well aware of the, drainage considerations that we've been experiencing during some of the, really extreme rain events that we've had over the last few years, and our engineering and planning departments have been working hard to find solutions to that, and this particular acquisition of land is going to be central to that solution. So as Councillor Chaboyer did say, it is a very critical piece of infrastructure that will help us to provide some remedies to the drainage situations up there. Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Worship. I think it's worth noting, too, that there's a considerable piece of this land that is not going to be used for drainage and is going to be available for future development for industrial use potentially. So there is a good opportunity for us to recoup some of those dollars through, subsequent sale and use of those lands.
Well put. Of the 272 acres, I think they expect that something a little in excess of 200 acres will be available for development afterwards. So it can not only help to resolve some of the drainage issues, but will be an important investment on the part of the city that we should be able to recoup and spawn some additional development over the years. So thanks for bringing that up. Any other discussion? Not, we're going to call for the motion, question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item, please.
I am not sure if there's any other committee reports,
Sorry
Your
about
Worship.
that. Yeah. If there are any other committee reports verbally, as often there are from other committees, a little less in the summer perhaps, but we could take them now if you did have a committee report. And again, seeing none, we can move on to the next item, please.
Inquiries, Your Worship.
Very good. We do have a number of inquiries we're aware of tonight. And Councillor Barry, go ahead.
I can lead off here. I thought maybe Councillor Fawcett might want to lead off with his first two there, but that's okay. I'll go ahead here. My first of three here, Your Worship, through you is, as our city continues to grow and residential development expands neighborhoods within our city, we are starting to see the growing pains of this, more so dealing with traffic in residential areas, much as what we heard tonight from Ms. Unruh on that. We are starting, quite a few cities are either looking at or have adopted the Vision Zero guidelines in dealing with traffic concerns from residents in this type of growth. I would encourage our city administration to examine it and adopt some of these recommendations and solutions for the city of Brandon, especially in the newly developed areas and possibly some existing residential sections of the city. Could we have administration look into Vision Zero and report back to council by early fall with any recommendations or suggested changes that could be implemented in some of the lost it here. Suggested by implementing some of the city residential areas immediately, but use this as a base for future development and growth. And I want to thank one of my area residents for bringing this forward to me and to my attention. That is actually a former council member from City Chambers here that lives in my ward that informed me about Vision Zero and gave me a little education on it. So I want to thank him for that and that, because there's some very good points in this, and I'm happy to bring this forward tonight.
Thanks for that. And our city manager, Ron Bowles, does have a response for us.
Yes, and so this response comes from San Van Heusen, traffic and transportation planner, and you did ask for a report, so in this response is a bit of a report, and then we can come back with more if you want. That's up to council. Thanks for bringing forward this important and not widely known topic. The term Vision Zero was coined by Swedish traffic planners in 1997 as a mission statement to combat road-related fatalities. The aggressive policies surrounding speed limits, road use, and design have attributed to a reduction in road-related fatalities by more than half. The success seen in the Swedish model has given encouragement to other governments, including our own federal and provincial governments, to create policy for lower levels of government. That's us. While much of these policies are in place, we are only starting to see action now. So there are many things the administration is doing to currently combat road-related fatalities, such as, a bit of a list here, crosswalk enhancements that include rectangular rapid flashing beacons at crosswalks near schools that see higher rates of vulnerable road users, ensuring sightlines are maintained, ensuring adequate and appropriate signage is installed and maintained, police education with schools to train youth crossing guards, speed limits are evaluated and properly posted, traffic calming techniques such as on-street parking to encourage lower speeds on straight lengths of roads, monitoring what other municipalities are finding, where they're finding success on this subject. So moving forward, City of Brandon will be incorporating the research completed on Vision Zero policies within our own city plan and movement plan. These policies will ensure that planning for the future and for rehabilitated areas will include accommodations for all road users. While actionable items may not be possible by this fall, administration could give a more detailed report on this topic of Vision Zero at Council's request.
Thanks very much. I did attend a presentation at probably FCM not that long ago on this, so it is a burgeoning kind of field, and good that our traffic engineers are aware of it, and as Councillor Berry pointed out, thankful to the citizen that raised the issue. It's an important piece of work. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and if I could just a little follow-up comment on that. A lot of my inquiries tonight, all three of them actually involve around traffic in residential areas, and that we've already had one presentation tonight, and much the story, the same thing in that. And as much as Brandon isn't a big city like Calgary or Toronto that actually implements these measures right now, being a smaller city, we still face the same problems. And 8 years ago, if you had asked me as a resident to look at probably putting a lower speed zone in a residential area, I'd probably like, nah, you know what, not a good thing to do. As our city grows, it's starting to become more and more looking like we're going to have to do something. The traffic in some areas, I know I have a couple streets in my ward, I'm sure others do as well in theirs, is getting to the point where it's I'm not going to say out of hand, but it's very fast moving. We're starting to see a little bit more frequency in mishaps and accidents like the one we heard tonight in that. And I think rather than be a reactive, we can maybe take some proactive steps and do some of this stuff as we move forward with development and that. So I'll leave my comments on that and just go to my second one here if I could, please. Through you, Your Worship, I have received complaints from residents on Durham Drive. Good old Durham Drive is back on my list again, folks. About the increased traffic that is coming down that residential street, most of it off of Aberdeen and turning south onto Durham. A lot of it seems to be coming from the Brookwood area and off 34th Street. It seems that traffic, mostly from Brookwood, is using this route as a shortcut to get to 26th or 18th Street, and instead of using Richmond Avenue or Patricia Avenue. I would like to request the traffic count be set up in early September at Aberdeen Avenue, just off 34th Street, the south section of Durham Drive, just off Aberdeen Avenue, to see if there are actions warranted in lowering the speed limit on these two roads. Putting up a three-way stop at the intersection of Aberdeen Avenue and Durham Drive is also an option, and putting removable speed bumps, like asphalt speed bumps in, that could be taken out in the wintertime along the sections of roads on Aberdeen and on Durham that exit out to basically slow traffic down. One suggestion I had from a resident, I know this is not something that traffic engineering wants to hear, is basically making Aberdeen Avenue, that one little short stretch between Durham and 34th Street, making it a one-way street. So basically all you can do is exit and traffic cannot come in there. And that was actually suggested from one of the residents as well, that they'd like to see happen. So again, that is my request of administration to look into these possible solutions. This is one that's more of a we need to do something soon rather than wait for information or studies to come back, because I think we're waiting for something bad to happen there. I sat there for 45 minutes one night myself, just on the corner, and I've lived in that area for 34 years, and I could not believe the amount of traffic that goes up and down that one side now than what it used to be. Is unbelievable.
Okay, again, Mr. Bowles has a response for us to at least get us started.
Sam Van Heusen's our traffic and transportation planner. You're keeping him busy, Councillor Berry. Durham Drive connecting Aberdeen and 26th Street sees a higher volume of traffic than other local streets within the Parkdale neighborhood due to its design and connection points. The city recently completed a reconstruction of the street and combined this new surface, wide vehicle lanes, and at times the absence of on-street parking. The motorists may feel more comfortable in driving above the posted speed limit due to these conditions. While this behavior should not be tolerated, the city will take the suggestions of the councillor and the residents under advisement and will study traffic patterns this fall as soon as school year starts, so right away. Administration hopes to have a response by the end of October.
And again, just a quick follow-up, Your Worship, on that. One of the things I think that administration and engineering is going to have to possibly consider a lot more near in the future to get done as opposed to later is that stretch of Maryland Avenue from 26th Street to 34th Street, where it doesn't run all the way through now. I think they're going to have to look at bumping that up in the schedule to get that put through to alleviate some of this problem. And that, I think right now it's about 5 years plus out. I don't think we can wait that long, and that for what's going on down there now, so.
Okay. And you may as well do your third.
Might as well do third,
Yeah.
okay. This actually came from a resident in the Richmond ward, on behalf of Councillor Brown, who's just on leave right now. I received a call from a resident of Councillor Brown's ward in regards to the parking and traffic situation along Sycamore Drive. I know other councillors have had also received the same complaints from residents of the Richmond ward and would like administration to examine the possibility of putting up no parking signs along the north side of the entire street on Sycamore. There are some there right now. Periodically from place to place, there are no parking. This is just a suggestion, as I drove up there a few times at different times to see what it was like. I think the one solution to do something there would put up no parking signs on the north side all the way along, and that to alleviate that. It's currently parking on both sides, and with the new building construction that's happened there, that has happened along there, when cars are parked on both sides, it makes for very difficult and very narrow driving for cars that have to use that street as a regular route. This street also serves as a city bus route, and it's hard to envision when our city transit buses are traveling down there heading east that any vehicle traveling in the opposite direction, that there's any room for both of them to be on that street if there's cars parked on both sides. Could we have this looked into in a report, a possible solution presented back to council by our September 20th meeting? Again, I just know there's been several complaints in that area about the parking and traffic on Sycamore, and we're just offering out maybe a solution here to put up the no parking on one side.
And again, back to Mr. Bowles, who's back to Mr. Van Heusen.
Yeah, we might as well make it a hat trick here. So yes, this response is provided by Sam Van Heusen, Traffic and Transportation Planner. Administration has received concerns over the speed and movement along Sycamore Drive between Magnolia Drive and Lyndale Drive. Speed concerns started in 2017 before any of the development was established. While police presence helps control speed in the short term, natural traffic calming is the best tool to reduce speed. The easiest natural traffic calming that the city can employ is on-street parking. The right-of-way on Sycamore is wide enough to allow two-directional on-street parking. While this does seem tight, it creates a remedy to the concern of speed control. Removing a lane for on-street parking will not only give more comfort to motorists, causing increased speed, it reduces available parking for all residents in the area. So unintended consequences here. The city has explained this rationale to residents calling in to voice their concern, and has pledged to monitor the situation through this winter and make changes only if traffic flows cause undue delay.
Thank you, Worship. Again, just a quick follow-up on that. I appreciate the comments given from engineering, from traffic engineering. I had the same problem on Willowdale some years ago. The answer was the no parking signs. It solved it. So I'm just going with that one there. So I'd like to see something done. But it really did solve a problem. And yes, it did take away some parking from people that had apartments over there, but it solved a lot of the problems we were having along Willowdale, west of 34th Street.
Okay, and thank you very much, Councillor Berry and Mr. Bowles. And maybe move on to Councillor Fawcett now.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Through your worship. And I want to thank Councillor Berry for bringing up the one with Vision Zero, because I think that people have been emailing me that for years, but with my dyslexia, I've misinterpreted it. But maybe they've been telling me about that for years. I always read it as zero vision. But maybe they were, maybe that's what they were trying to tell me. But on the other note, this isn't to do with traffic. The Sportsplex, could I get an update on the pool reopening? And my understanding has been that the work had been going well.
Thank you very much. And again, back to Mr. Bowles.
So, Councillor Fawcett, this response is coming from Heather Reimer, our Manager of Recreation. And she says, the staff at the Brandes Community Sportsplex are excited to welcome the public back to the pool this fall. The Sportsplex pool construction is expected to wrap up with substantial completion by September 13th. So reopening is currently scheduled for September the 27th, with a return to all programming, including Red Cross swim lessons, public swim, lap swim, aquafit, and rentals. So schedules and registration options will be released in early September.
Thank you. That's good to know, and we should make sure we're getting that out there. The second one here, actually, I hadn't really intended it as a inquiry, but it is a useful one, I guess. It was just a meeting I did have with Director of Engineering Services, Mark Allard, about some issues up in the south end, and it deals also with the purchase we just made, or making. And that is, I was wanting to know what we have planned, or if we have a plan for the drainage coming east of 18th Street South into the ditches that are causing property damage east of the ditch. We've had that a few different times, and Mr. Allard actually did take some time and give me a good walkthrough, and I think he'll probably be doing that with the rest of council, but he also did give a response to this, so good to get it out.
Fairly lengthy response, but we'll
Longer than I would have thought. It was a lengthy discussion.
try and give us the Coles Notes version of it there, although that might be difficult.
Okay, I can give you the Coles notes. I'll let you all read the pros and cons. How about that?
Yeah.
Your Worship, okay. So this response was provided, this detailed response was provided by Mark Allard, Director of Engineering Services. And, basically what he wanted to provide for Councillor Fawcett and, of course, the rest of council is give you a bit of an idea of what they're doing with some of the drainage issues. Two main hotspots that he talks about here. So the City Administration is aware of the drainage concerns on 18th Street South and into the ditch. Conversations have been held with a few area residents. So some of the options under consideration, and he's just sort of letting you into his engineering world, some of the things that they're looking at. So I'll start with option number one is take water from 18th Street and Lyndale Drive south to the RM of Cornwallis, likely going through the annexed lands. So that's one option that's been provided or that they're looking at. Another option is push water from 18th Street down Sycamore Drive, so that goes into the actual storm system, so not in the ditch. And it has some pros and cons to that one, so they're evaluating it. The third option is water is currently flowing from the 18th Street right away to land in the northern drainage system, so past the cemetery. And so they're considering pushing some of the water towards that north system, and there's some pros and cons with that as well. He then goes on to say that the problem at 18th Street and sort of the Lyndale area is probably not really a capacity issue. And so he gives two examples that he talks about the June 2020 flood, where we had 5 to 7 inch rainfall, so a rather large rainfall in a short period of time. And our system, as he goes on to say, is not designed for that volume and intensity. And so flooding can occur when that were to happen. Now this June, so June of 2021, ironically we had a much smaller rainfall, 2 inches of rain. And so the system would be expected to handle that volume of rain. Unfortunately, there was fresh grass cuttings in the ditch, and that plugged up our inlets and reducing the reliability of the system. So anyways, Mr. Allard goes on to say, we are currently trying to find short-term solutions for this and believe there's an opportunity to resolve this issue and some of the options above as these options are explored and played out. We're looking forward to put together recommendations and estimates for council's consideration. So stay tuned.
Thanks to that, and I know sometimes the city manager is kind of modest. I know he's met with developers, property managers in that area as well, who themselves are also collaborating and contributing, I guess, some of their knowledge and ideas. And so Mr. Bowles is trying to kind of collate all of the information between our own engineering and operations and that of the developers. So between all those good minds, hopefully we do come up with a solution pretty soon, because it is certainly a difficult situation for people up there that are enduring the kind of flash occurrences.
Your Worship, my understanding too is that the engineering will be meeting with us at some point here in the next little while to sort of go over this large south piece with this purchase that has just been made. with the cemetery expansion and that, to sort of walk us through some of these options. And they are coming shortly, I hope, so it'll be good. Thank you.
That was the end of yours, Councillor Fawcett.
Yeah.
And Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the Mr. Bowles. I was contacted by a resident recently in close proximity to the railroad crossing at 26th Street and Pacific Avenue. With the recent rains last week, his property was again flooded, similar to how it happened in 2020, as did the apartments on the west side of 26th Street, where heavy rains flooded the apartment sites last year. There's a feeling from the resident much of this stems from a drainage ditch that's poorly maintained along the CP rail tracks east and west of 26th Street. I was wondering if the city could work with the railroad to explore dredging, further ditching in the area, or other ideas to alleviate the flooding that happens when runoff rain comes down 26th Street or off the railroad tracks there. And then subsequent to that, and this is more of an annoyance, but still something the resident wanted to raise. Further, the resident has requested the city explore traffic supports that would keep vehicles from turning around in his newly paved driveway when they're waiting for a longer train at the crossing. Yeah, he's had vehicles hit his garbage bins, knock them over before in an attempt to turn, and it's annoyance when vehicles continue to execute three-point turns to avoid waiting. I'm wanting to know if there's a plan in place, if we could look at that, if there is a plan for drainage coming east off 26th Street to the south and into the ditch, causing property damage east of the ditch. And I have visited with this resident a number of times, and he has moved to using his bins to block the end of the driveway, and then they just get knocked over when the cars turn around in his driveway. So hoping we can look at some ways to alleviate that on behalf of the resident.
Very good. Back to Mr. Bowles.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cameron, and the front tables here are keeping our engineering department busy. So this response is provided by Mr. Mark Allard, Director of Engineering Services. He says, as this matter will involve further drainage and traffic investigations, as well as discussion with CP Rail, we propose to take this matter under advisement at this time with a full report to come back to Council in mid-September.
Thank you.
You. And I think we have one from Councillor Chaboyer.
Yes, Your Worship. Thank you. Concerns have been raised about cars being parked in the ditch on Maryland Avenue, the north side that's across from Hummingbird Gardens, that's close to 26th Street. It has been noticed that children are getting in these vehicles into the traffic on the north side of this fairly narrow avenue. Parking here has become a dangerous obstruction for traffic, and it's also unsafe for the pedestrians on the walkway there as well. The street continues to grow as a busy route and is getting busier with all the development in the area. Is it possible that the City of Brandon consider putting up no parking signs on the north side of Maryland for everyone's safety?
Okay, and again back to Mr. Bowles.
Thank you, Councillor Chaboyer. So the short answer is yes. Administration has received the inquiry and has the following response for Councillor Chaboyer. Maryland Avenue between Derlego Drive and 18th Street is designated as a collector street in the City of Brandon, and the current cross section does not permit on-street parking. The City will take this request for signage under advisement and work with our operations crews to have appropriate signage indicating prohibited parking over the next few weeks. The city, and he goes on to say the city reminds residents that it is prohibited to park a vehicle in a public reserve or move a vehicle across a grass boulevard or multi-use trail where no access is established. Those accessing the Hummingbird Community Gardens must access the site via the access off 26th Street. That's a tongue twister.
Thank you for that response. That's good news to hear that signs will go up for everyone's safety. Thanks.
Very good. I think those are the inquiries we are aware of in advance. Once in a while there are inquiries that arise throughout the day, and if there were, we could take those now. Not seeing any other, we could, sorry, Councillor Chaboyer, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. This one's kind of off the cuff, but I'm wondering if the planning department could review the number of allocated parking spots for some of these new developments, because I find a lot of these issues that are coming up with parking on these congested streets, be it Sycamore, it's because there is not enough visitor parking and parking in the actual apartment blocks. So is it possible that you can look at what's going on in the rest of the country and seeing if maybe there should be more visitor parking spots allowed at, within these types of developments, because it is getting extremely congested and these streets are piled up with vehicles all the time.
Okay, we can take that under advisement, Councillor
Thanks.
Chaboyer. Happily, the chief planner is in the audience and probably heard the question, so he'll no doubt take note of that, and we can provide a response in the future. Thank you. Any other questions, any other inquiries, rather, that may have arisen? I called him chief planner. He's actually the director of planning and buildings, just to keep it official. Okay, thank you very much. I think that concludes the inquiries. Next item, please.
The order of announcements, Your Worship.
Announcements this evening. Councillor Cameron, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just wanted to announce that the Brandon General Museum and Archives new exhibit, Manitoba 1870, is open. This is an exhibit that was created by guest curator Greg Steele and was originally to happen in 2020, albeit that the pandemic did a lot of things that caused delays. So Manitoba 1870 looks at the province's early history. The exhibit features stories from the Trading Post, Hudson's Bay Company, Indigenous peoples, profiles of individuals that helped shape Manitoba. Now, the museum itself is open by appointment right now, and it's an appointment tour basis. So if residents were interested to check out this exhibit, which we encourage them to do, they could call the Brandon General Museum and Archives at 204-717-1514, or they can check out brandongeneralmuseum.ca.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cameron. Sounds quite interesting. Other inquiry or other announcements, rather? Got a couple myself. So this Saturday, August 21st, is the 150th anniversary of the signing of Treaty 2. Of course, Brandon, City of Brandon is located within Treaty 2 territory, and so they are hosting. I received an invitation from Grand Chief Eugene Eastman, who is the Grand Chief of Treaty 2, inviting me to a ceremony at the Sharing Lodge in Wasagaming, where everyone will review the Treaty 2 documents, and certainly some remarks will be made, and a commemoration of that important piece of our history. So that's this Saturday, August 21st. Not sure if there'll be other activities here locally, but their official Treaty 2 commemoration will be at their Anishinaabe Sharing Lodge in Wasagaming on Tawapit Drive, if you're in the vicinity on Saturday. And I don't normally share a lot of personal items in the middle of city business, but this will be mildly one. Just returned from a vacation out to Kamloops, British Columbia, as my wife Karen and I got to meet our first grandchild, our granddaughter Charlotte. Our daughter Caitlin lives out in Kamloops, and so joining the club of many in the room that are already grandparents, and I know there'll be lots of people that are regular viewers of our council meetings who are themselves grandparents. So your old mayor is finally caught up to you here, and I would like to thank Deputy Mayor Parker for kind of looking after the shop for me while I was away to British Columbia, and there were no calamities that I was aware of while I was away. You did such a good job that nobody got to see them. So thank you very much, Councillor Parker.
Congratulations, Mayor Crest and Karen, and Grandpa Parker did a great job while you were away.
Thank you very much. Again, unless there's any other announcements, I think we're ready to move on to the next item of business, please.
Under the order of general business, Your Worship, consideration of the intermunicipal water services agreement between the City of Brandon and the RM of Cornwallis and VBJ Developments Limited.
Very good. Councillor Barry.
Your Worship, I'd like to move that the proposed intermunicipal water services agreement between the City of Brandon and the rural municipality of Cornwallis and VBJ Developments Limited be approved, whereby same shall from Schedule A to bylaw number 7313 to authorize the execution of said agreement.
And a seconder, please. Councillor Parker. Now, I wasn't sure, I don't like to preempt. Sometimes staff have the anticipation of making a presentation or have presentations made, so I never like to have seen any efforts put in and then we just blow by it. So I just like to check if we're going to get a presentation on this, or it's certainly a very copious presentation as part of our documents today, but I just wanted to make sure we weren't getting out ahead of ourselves here. So, okay, good. Naturally, administration is available to answer questions, so we'll open up the floor for discussion. Did the mover wish to speak?
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, we've had lots of discussion about this in prior meetings, some informal meetings and that. I was going to ask if maybe a member from administration could just come and give a brief overview of what this is all about. We don't need a whole presentation, but just a quick overview of what this agreement's all about, just to kind of refresh everybody's memory and then see if there's questions from the floor. So I would ask that.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea. Mr. Nickel is always on top of it.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Worship. Through you to Council. I'm also staring right at Rex, so if he wants to jump in just for fun, he could probably do that. As Councillor Barry mentioned, we've chatted about this a few times before. Council started the process by accepting the request. The last time we discussed it, there was direction provided by Council on the terms. So not the exact terms, but the general terms to be negotiated with in the agreement. And since then, administration's had multiple meetings with the developer, in this case VBJ Developments, and the RM of Cornwallis. After a little bit of back and forth, I think for the most part we figured out the terms of agreement to the satisfaction of the parties. There was some discussion about the term of the agreement, because in this case, for the most part, agreements have terms. They just don't go on forever. And we have brought forward a 25-year term, which is probably a little bit longer than originally we were looking for, but stating that there is significant investment being made by the developer upfront, and they're paying for the cost of extending it. And there's a little bit of nervousness if this agreement is cut out, because, of course, the water service is essential for the use. So it's a 25-year term, or if the land gets annexed into the city sooner, of course, the agreement would just cease because the land becomes part of the city, and you don't need a service sharing agreement for land that's in the City of Brandon. The goal of the City of Brandon remains the same, to proceed with annexation within the 5-year timeline as directed by City Council. But of course, annexation is not the final decision of the City of Brandon. That goes to the province. So if that wasn't to occur, this agreement would continue forward. The reason why 25 years was used was that was based on a projected land supply. So for example, if for whatever reason it wasn't successful, that's when the city would finally start to potentially look at lands out in this area. From an RM perspective, they're deliberating on this item tomorrow. So of course I can't comment on what their council's position was, but talking to staff, the general sense was, of course, Cornwallis would rather not see this land annexed and stay in the RM. But I think they do acknowledge that was the recommendation of City Council and the term that was put in the agreement. Outside of that, the details of the agreement I feel are consistent with the direction of Council. Including that the developer is all 100% responsible for constructing the cost of the improvement and for paying development charges phased over 3 separate payments through the process, and then any liability or responsibility within the installation of the water is subject to the developer's responsibility, and then the payment of utility rates would be the same as utility rates if the property were in the city of Brandon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nickel. Any questions of Ryan on this? As it was indicated, we've had a number of discussions on this, but kind of coming to the finish line on it now. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Nickel. This is maybe more of an operations question on it, but is there any fear with, I think this is actually a good agreement that we're entering into, but is there any fear that residents of that area will see like a drop in water pressure, a drop in access to water with the service extending further down the line and for larger development? I know that'll be probably one of the concerns that residents may raise with it.
Yeah, through Your Worship to Councillor Cameron, I think it would be false to say there's no concern because it is an additional water user. But from an engineering perspective, and engineering could jump in, but it's typically a discussion about pressure. That's the big concern here in comparison to supply. And in this case, the developers are responsible for their pressure within their site. So the supply should get there. It might encounter some pressure problems, and then they'll have to solve that on their property. And then also saying that there might need to be some creative work between the city and the operator. In this case, especially if they're going through periods like a tournament setting where they're flooding, because that's why the request went forward, was for the flooding of the rink, to see so the service to our residents is not impacted. So there is a risk. I think it's been reviewed and it was deemed to be a manageable risk, which is why it's being brought forward. And then the discussion about the water pressure in that area is that it's undergoing modeling, and the hope is to bring something back here in the, not the council, but in the near future, looking at the network and potential improvements, including pumping to bring up the pressure in that area.
Thank you.
And Councillor Cullen.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Mr. Nickel. Are you concerned at all when it comes to the length of the agreement being 25 years, being now that it's sort of, originally the concept was sort of a temporary solution to getting water out to this particular development. But now if it's the piece has been extended out for 25 years now, sort of a temporary line, do you have kind of an expiry date on this line, whereas there may be some other issues that we would have to worry about? Or do you see if anything in the future where people would be expected to tack onto this line, or is this just sort of a one-up, even though I hate that word throwaway, but the bottom line is that it is a kind of a unique fix, but now going out 25 years, it now becomes a little more permanent and a little less temporary. So I'm just sort of trying to figure out those terms if you're concerned at all.
Through Your Worship to Councillor Cullen, you're right, throwaway never sounds good, but it is a temporary connection. And when you start adding 25 years on a temporary connection, you start to get a little bit squeamish. But the reality is, even if that connection was to be used temporarily, the city's plans for putting a water line down Patricia would be much sooner than that. And then the timeline related to the annexation is a little bit tricky. Would we be more comfortable with less years? Probably. Would the applicant be? Likely not from the discussion, just because they're incurring significant cost going through the process. It's not 25 years exactly, because it's whatever comes first, with the city's interest hopefully being that the land would be annexed within the 5-year timeline. But saying that, yes, there is a risk with the agreement being pushed out 25 years, and that's something that council will have to consider for the terms of the agreement.
I do believe, to add to that this really is kind of considered like a private connection, and the repairs and maintenance of it still rest with the developer, not the city. So it's not really, how would I put it, a little less material to the city whether this temporary service is 5 years or 25 years. The maintenance of it and the operation of it still rests with the developer. So until such time as we have, the land was annexed and then we put out regular water line, which we're accustomed to maintaining, then it probably isn't really much of a concern to the city how long this agreement is.
If I may follow up just with another question then. So does the agreement that we have cover the removal of options for other uses or users to tie into that line as we go along?
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Collins, sorry, you asked that question before and I didn't answer that part of it. So this agreement is specific to the rink. So it's written in the agreement that it's for the rink use only. So if, for example, there was a request to expand the use into other purposes on that property, there'd need to be a renegotiation of the agreement.
And Councillor Fawcett.
Yeah, thank you, through your worship, to Mr. Nicol. I'm going to ask you some engineering stuff, so you just do the best you can with it. The long-term plan in the south end, well, actually, what we're calling short-term, our long-term is short-term, is to service the south end with a new water line, with new sewer line, in this huge sort of south end expansion we're looking at. Rough timelines on that proposed expansion?
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Fawcett. So I know engineering is reviewing the options right now because we know the wastewater force main is going to go all the way down Patricia to 34th, right? And that's going to be kind of the connection point for those systems. And they've been looking at the water line and it is somewhat advantageous to do it together, but not perhaps as advantageous as maybe just because they go on separate sides of the street. So I think a portion of it likely will be done up into kind of on the side of Brentwood there. So the first portion up to the annexed lands, so potentially the annexed lands, recently annexed lands could tie into that. And then the next phase would come at a later date. So when we're talking about kind of that later date, we're probably looking, and once again, I don't want to speak because we're looking at the options, but it could be more in the 5 to 10 year range, Councillor Fawcett.
Yeah, and again, through your worship, and that might alleviate a little bit too, not immediately, but what Councillor Cameron's concerns were about pressure and such in that area. It'll allow for bigger lines, larger lines. Do we have a booster station plan in that area?
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Fawcett, I think that's going to be a result of the, well, not the booster station, but going through the more detailed modeling of the water system there. And of course the pressure piece, and that'll be looked at during the review of the water modeling, where the extension down Patricia is more to make sure it's looping through this system. And the reason to get the timing right is currently Brookwood South, which hasn't really started yet, and that's one of the driving factors of kind of bringing it down there, is to allow Brookwood South to connect in and move through. So as always, we're trying to right time infrastructure so we're not maintaining, or infrastructure is not performing properly because it's not getting utilized enough.
Okay. I'm comfortable with that right now.
Other questions? Ryan did point out our city lawyer and director of legal services, Rex Osavoimu, is on Teams and was available to answer questions if there was any about the legal part of the agreement. And I would like to kind of expand that, as council knows, this was a very rapid piece of work on the part of principally our staff, certainly the developer and the RM of Cornwallis, all collaborating to get this put together in this kind of a intermunicipal services agreement. Usually they take a long time to cobble together, and this was done in really a rather few number of weeks. So I would like to compliment everybody that was involved in just putting their shoulder to the wheel to make this happen. And this does create a recreation amenity for our community in our vicinity. So certainly it does provide some benefit to the greater community, and also I guess just for the public's information, it's not as though this developer just went and built this rink and then discovered that, gee whiz, I forgot to figure out where I'm getting water from. They originally had a water supply, and it's turned out that they had plenty of water, but the quality was not suitable to run the machinery that needs to flood the rink and make the ice there. And so as a fallback position, did approach the city and the RM of Cornwallis to see if we could come up with a kind of a joint cooperative arrangement, which is what is before council tonight. So just a few added comments, and especially I do want to thank our administration that really worked hard to get this to be able to facilitate the speed that was required for this. So thanks, Ryan, to you and the greater team. Now back to the matter, and any other questions, any further debate that council wish to have, discussion or comments on this matter? If not, I think we're probably ready for the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thanks very much, Rex, for being on board. You can see him in my screen. And next item, please.
An amendment to fee schedule regulations regarding police services.
Very good. And now I'm not sure, we do have two members of the police executive, with the chief and Inspector Greg Hebert. I'm not sure whether you're just here to answer questions. If you had a presentation on this, just answer questions. Okay, very good. Well, then we'll take a motion and we'll get it on the floor, and then we can call up the chief or the inspector should there be questions. So I'll take a motion on this, please. Barry?
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that the fee, that fee schedule 001 be amended effective September 1st, 2021 by making the following changes to requests for criminal records or pardons on page 27 of Schedule A to the fee schedule reg-001, adding an online fee of $52, deleting general 20% discount for 10 or more in a batch request, and substituting therefore the word walk-in and increasing the fee to $52, adding a new line walk-in 10 or more requests in a batch per request at a fee of $41.60, and adding walk-in only after not-for-profit agencies.
And seconder, please. Councillor Cullen, who wishes to speak?
I believe they need an amendment to the fee schedule, and I'm all for it.
Again, it's a rather small amount of changes, but the way our system works, all of the fees are contained in the fee schedule that we typically pass at the beginning of the year, and so any changes do need to come back to us. But again, we do have members of the police service executive here if there are questions, so don't be afraid to ask. Well, I think the chief did come in off vacation just because he enjoys attending council meetings, but he is here. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll throw this out there for the chief just to feel like there's a purpose in being here this evening. Just a question through you to Chief Balkin. Just wondering, in a given year, if he would happen to know how many of these fees or how many of these records checks the police department would do, and if they feel obviously that this is substantive enough that it covers the costs to process them.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. We've got the Chief Balkin here.
Yes, through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Cameron. We do approximately 3,700 criminal record checks per year, and the fee increase will cover the new online called a convenience fee. Not only will residents and people who use this service be able to do this 24/7, but it'll also reduce the traffic flow within our police service, the calls into the police service, and ultimately we looked at this through the pandemic view. If we have to go back into any sort of lockdowns, people can still get their criminal records done and have to cancel that service.
Just as a follow-up, if I may, Your Worship, thank you very much for that. Through you to Chief Balkin. So once this is complete and the online portion of it is sort of active, residents will be able to make that request. Are they also able to receive the criminal record check, like the response back through an online portal as well, or does that require like a visit to the police station, just for information for our residents?
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Cameron, it's a dual system, so if people wish, they can come to our police service once all the criminal record check is verified and pick up at our office, or we can send an encrypted email to the recipient, and then they can go in with the password protected encrypted email and print out their own criminal record check.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up, this is a great addition, I think, you know, and as far as that ease of use, I commend the police force for working towards doing this, because I think it'll really help, especially during times of COVID, but furthermore, just in general, in having people have access to the service. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And journalists in the newspaper business, Councillor Parker, they kind of call us burying the lead. We're kind of focusing on just the changes in the fee schedule, and it just kind of focuses on the money. And to me, as you pointed out, Councillor Cameron, that's kind of the minor part of the story here, as it really could be a tremendous improvement to service and access to service. Many occupations now, as we know, require obtaining a criminal record check, coaching and working with kids and so on and so forth. As the Chief has indicated, whatever it was, 3,700 a year that they've been processing, and that's probably going to continue to go up. Well, now as a platform to be able to increase the access and speed to which you can get these, and I think is just a great news story. And as I indicated, the fee part of it is kind of really burying the lead here in terms of what the true story is about. So this is good news. Any other questions of the Chief, or we could ask one of Inspector Hebert too, if you're making it feel like he's feeling bad. But okay, thank you very much, Chief, for coming out, and Inspector Hebert as well. Any other further discussion before we call for the question? Seeing none, we will call for the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item, please.
It's funding for the conceptual redesign of the library arts first floor.
Again, a motion would be in order, and not sure if we're having a presentation on this, Mr. Bowles, or again, it's contained in the report, so we can, questions can be answered if there are some, but a motion to get it on the floor would be in order, please. Councillor Fawcett.
Yes, thank you, through your worship. But that a maximum of $50,000 be authorized to be expended from the Library Arts Building Reserve for the preparation of a conceptual redesign for the first floor of the Library Arts Building.
Seconder, please. Councillor Cameron. Mover wish to speak?
Through your worship, this is just some work that we're looking at getting done at the Library Arts Building. We held off with some new carpet and all that down there this year, as we were looking at a couple of different things with the library and discussions with them. And so the scope of the work for the request for this proposal would include a consultation with the library and art gallery for potential uses of the space, changing things up a bit, an analysis of a conceptual floor plan, redesign options, consideration for a new exterior entrance, analysis of options for the use of multi-purpose programming space, and analysis of options for other cultural entities which would be placed in the space, like for example a museum or something like that, an analysis of options for the inclusion of other uses which could implement the space as a cultural hub. So we're doing a bit of a deep dive into the future of the site down there. The library, of course, being there, some facility way.
Again, to expand on Councillor Fawcett's comments, I think it's important for public to be aware that there's been considerable amount of discussions and work going on between City Council, the board of the Western Manitoba Library, and then of course our staffs, that have really been trying to analyze both the physical facility and programming and like of the library. This in conjunction with other issues that we are having in downtown, and we will be presenting a downtown strategy. Administration are putting the finishing touches on that for a presentation to City Council. Quite soon, as a matter of fact, that contemplates some of the other issues that we've been having of a safety and wellness considerations for downtown. So a number of things that really kind of cross-reference one another, if you will, that council and our administration are working on really at the same time, and with a view to seeing improvements to our downtown and seeing improvements to some of the facilities in downtown, which includes the library. So I mean, this would be a study, as Councillor Fawcett has laid out, that would analyze and make some recommendations on what some of the future amenities and programming might occur. So again, this is one cog in probably a bigger wheel of work we're trying to do as a council with respect to our downtown and some of the amenities there. So just to kind of round that out. Any further discussion on this or questions before we call the question? Seeing none, call for the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item, please.
Also under general business, Your Worship, consideration of an amendment to resolution number 1112, which was the affordable housing incentive for 415 25th Street. And I would note, as we are looking at amending a motion that was previously adopted and no notice was given, that we do require a 2/3 vote to pass this amendment.
Very good. Councillor Cameron, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll put the motion on the floor, and then perhaps Mr. Nicol would be able to provide some feedback as well. But the motion reads that Council Resolution number 1112 relating to an affordable housing incentive for 415 25th Street adopted at the June 21st, 2021 meeting of City Council be amended by deleting the words 3784500 Manitoba Limited and substituting thereof the words 7571861 Manitoba Limited.
And seconder, please. Councillor Frangie. And I do believe that we've got Ms. Trudell on the line as well, who might be able to speak to this probably more so than Mr. Nicol. And so I know we got the technology. If she's, I could see her on my screen, but
Is.
And go ahead.
So certainly.
There we go.
So in June of 2021, Council did approve a package, an incentive package to facilitate the development of 48 affordable housing units at 415 25th Street. And so on the advice of the proponent's accountant, a new numbered company has been set up so that it can be solely dedicated to both the construction and then the ongoing management of the affordable housing project that has been proposed and subsequently a package approved by Council. Since the original motion was done under the numbered company that the proponent envisioned using, in order to make this change and still have a binding agreement that will facilitate the exact same project with the exact same developer, we're needing to substitute the originally approved private company in with the new numbered company. So really absolutely no change to anything that Council has previously approved with regards to both project and proponent. We're looking just to go through the proper channels to accurately make this change in a way that Council is legislated to do so.
Yeah, so basically a little more of a housekeeping issue, just kind of keeping the legal pieces straight by tidying up the numbered company that the developer wants to use. So, any questions of Mr. Adel that the council may have? Not seeing any. Any other questions or discussion? Councillor Cameron?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the rest of council, but more so the residents. Just want to clarify that this is not precluding any of the public discussion or that sort of thing that's going to happen around the design aspects of the property and some of the other concerns that were raised. This, as the mayor had mentioned there, this is merely a housekeeping issue in making sure that from an accounting standpoint that the proponent is able to manage that effectively on his end. There still is, as you know, we have talked through planning, there is some public consultation upcoming. We just don't have dates for them yet regarding the number of the design aspects and some of the other concerns that were raised by residents over the last number of weeks. So just wanted to make sure that was out there, that it wasn't this wasn't in any way tied to that. It was more sort of the housekeeping aspect of it. So
I'm glad you did raise that, and I was going to as well. And again, I think residents, as you know better than anyone, had just sort of felt that it was, a completely completed scenario, and that they hadn't had an opportunity to see aspects of the design or have any input into that. But that process is yet to commence, so residents can just be a little patient, and the opportunities will be arising in the future to weigh in on some of the normal design considerations and planning considerations, I guess you could say, the development process that is normal. So that is yet to occur, and I know lots of the ward residents have been calling Councillor Cameron, and he's been doing a great job at fielding all of that, but process is yet to come, and this is in no way kind of preventing that. So thanks for raising that, Councillor Cameron.
thank you.
Any other discussion before we call the question? Seeing none, then I think we will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried unanimously. Next item, please. Thank you, Ms. Trudell, for joining us. And next item, please.
Under the order of bylaws, Your Worship, bylaw number 7295, which is to authorize the boring for the outdoor field complex.
Councillor Fawcett. Go ahead.
Why not? Thank you, through Your Worship, that bylaw number 7295 to provide for the borrowing and expenditure of funds for the construction of an outdoor field complex be read a first time.
Seconder, please. Councillor Cullen. Again, this is just first reading, not normally debatable, so we'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next item, please.
Bylaw number 7301, which is the rezoning of property located east of Lark Street and west of 301 Glen Avenue.
And Councillor Fawcett.
Yes, again, thank you, and through Your Worship, that bylaw number 7301 to rezone property located east of Lark Avenue, and which is it Lark Avenue or Lark Street? I just want clarity on there, just so we have that right.
I have Lark Street, so I...
Oh, we got Lark Avenue in this here, so... and I'll get that back to that. We'll make sure it's right. And west of 301 Glen Avenue, from Parks and Recreation Zone to Residential Mobile Modular Home Zone, be read a third and final time. I believe it is Lark Street, but... Right?
Or south.
Seconder,
Correct,
please.
it's Lark Street.
It is Lark Street.
Thank you.
That's how you know.
And could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Parker. Mover wish to speak?
Thank you, through Your Worship. This is something we've actually discussed a few times now. We've gone through all the hearings and such. It allows smaller parcels, and then it does the completion of that sale of that property that really was of no value to anybody but that landowner. So it should supply some opportunity for some smaller residential mobile homes in the neighborhood.
Very good. I think we're ready for the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item, please.
Bylaw number 7304, which is an amendment to
Point of
zone-
order.
I'm sorry?
I don't know if you recorded that vote as third reading, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
You.
See, you're still on the case, eh?
Still on the
Yeah.
case, still Deputy Mayor.
Well, it was third reading, a recorded vote was in order, and actually, frankly, Councillor Cameron was kind of betwixt and between, so we will do that vote again, please, on a recorded basis. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And next item, please.
Bylaw number 7304, which is an amendment to the zoning bylaw regarding text changes, and I would note there is an amendment requested prior to second and third reading.
Again, go ahead, Councillor Fawcett.
Through your worship. Bylaw number 7304 to amend zoning bylaw number 7124 to increase efficiency of land uses and processing development approvals be amended as follows. Adding the following immediately after subsection 1B7, 1B8, deleting the term office, the words and travel agency, and substituting therefore the word travel agency and community resource centers. 2, adding to subsection 2G the words corner or immediately after the words except within the required, and 3, deleting in subsection 3A2 the word principal and substituting therefore the word principal. There's different spellings of those.
Thank you. And I need a seconder for that amendment, please. Councillor Cullen. Not sure if the mover wants to speak or if any member of administration wanted to highlight or answer questions on this. Get some housekeeping items. Nicole's on the ball here.
Yeah, this is pedantics. Well, official pedantics.
Your worship, to council, yeah, a few of those wordings are pretty minor. Probably could even make those without an amendment sometimes. We may as well clean them up as we're going through the process. Just on the background piece, though, because in some cases it is housekeeping, but even housekeeping has impacts. So I want to make sure council's aware of the impact of the housekeeping here. And a few of the ones that have some bigger impacts is the second bullet point under background that talks about trying to ensure consistency across our commercial zones for building height. So what this is looking to do is to allow larger sites to construct up to 4-story buildings. We've seen that in success in some of our other sites, and we see some larger mixed-use buildings going up. And that's consistent with the vision for our commercial corridors to intensify. It's good for the city to see investment, and larger buildings provide places for people to live, more vibrancy, as well as up in the tax base, which is always good for the city to utilize our assets. As well as aligning the other areas with 3-story buildings where typically they've been limited to 2-story buildings. And hopefully we can think about some nicer mixed-use projects we've seen around the city, and hopefully we see developers continue to invest in these projects, and hopefully this will help make the process a little less red tape. Electric charging stations, that's a little bit of a minor thing, but certainly something that is becoming more and more predominant. What that does, it just aligns charging stations with current rules around fuel stations, so gas stations, where if you're going to a charging station that requires a quick charge where it has similar traffic movements to fuel, it'll just have the same rules behind it. Trying to eliminate red tape about residential subdivisions that are on private property. So typically those have to go through a special approval process where for the most part it's just a private sign on private property, so that will just be handled administratively and not have to go to council. We're trying to provide more flexibility on fencing on corner sites. These things seem like maybe a minor thing, but it is a concern for a lot of residents, where in some cases their building is facing one way, but we make them fence in front of their house just because of how the lots are positioned. So this provides some flexibility for people to use their yards. And the last piece here is just clarity on space for dwelling units. So a few of those are mostly just housekeeping, and one has more of a major impact, but this is part of an annual review that we do in planning. We compile all the feedback that we get from residents throughout the year and take a look at the bylaw to see what we can change to make sure our rules are relevant and meaningful for our customers. Thanks.
Thank you. I think Councillor Fawcett might have been referring to these few amendments in the amendment that he just moved were minor. The rest of it is probably a little less minor. We'll get to that. So
Yeah, I was going to say it's a thank you to Mr. Nickel for coming up. Our backgrounder gives us all that. I was just reading off the, people were probably wondering what he was talking about related to what I was just talking about.
Right.
But it is all in there together. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to call the question on the amendments that Councillor Fawcett just moved. Unless there's other discussion. Call for the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Now we could take a motion on second reading as amended.
Okay, so through your worship, that bylaw number 7304 as amended be read a second time.
Seconder, please. Councillor Cameron. Any discussion? This part now really is germane to all of the things that Mr. Nickel just highlighted and the greater amount of changes. And again, nice to see that we are embracing some things that are now coming upon us, such as electrical charging stations and the like. So we are trying to keep up. If there are not further discussions, we'll call the question on second reading. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And third reading would be in order, please.
Yes, again, thank you through your worship that the bylaw be read a third and final time.
Seconder. Councillor Cameron again. And again, as this is third reading, a recorded vote will be required. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Next item, please.
Bylaw number 7305, which is also an amendment to the zoning bylaw, but it is mapping updates. And again, a minor amendment is required.
Councillor Fawcett, carry on.
Thank you, through your worship, that bylaw number 7305 to rezone multiple properties across the city of Brandon be amended by deleting section 1S in its entirety.
Seconder, please. Councillor Parker. Again, I'm not sure if we need any commentary on this one. It's primarily in the report. There wasn't any highlights you were wanting to make, Mr. Nickel?
May have a go. Yeah. You don't get enough out of what I just said.
Yeah, through your worship, and it is in the report, but I do want to highlight a few of these ones because there are a few key ones here as well. So just to go through the analysis real quickly, and I'll skip the pieces that are a little bit simpler. Section 1 talks about places of worship, just trying to provide increased flexibility for places of worship to zone them properly. Often places of worship have daycares and other community type uses. It's nice to make it a little bit easier to do business for those folks. Section 2, someone's house is actually zoned green space, which is too bad because we don't want them to be zoned green space. Sometimes we do, but in this case we don't, so let's get the right zone. The Section 3 is one with more of an impact. That's the first phase of Assiniboine Gardens. So the city does own some land there that we'll be looking to make available for commercial development. So if council recalls, we adopted the new strategy for the Assiniboine Gardens, a secondary plan, and this is the first phase of rezoning to see some new commercial investment there across from the parks complex. Section 4 talks about rezoning the city's land on the North Gateway to Development Reserve, and that's to acknowledge the limited infrastructure there right now and the long-term nature that we've prioritized in North Hill with all our focus on South Brandon. And Section 5 is trying to accommodate our new field complex that we were fortunate enough to confirm the funding for to set that up for success. That's it. Thanks.
Good overview. Any questions, Mr. Nickel, while he's up? Apparently not. Thank you very much. Back to the amendment as Councillor Fawcett has moved.
Yes, good. Thank
Not
you.
further discussion. We'll call for the question on it. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And second reading as amended would be in order, please.
Thank you, through your worship, that bylaw number 7305 as amended be read a second time.
Seconder, please. Councillor Parker. Any discussion? Seeing none, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And third reading as well.
Good. Thank you again, through your worship, that the bylaw be read a third and final time.
seconded by Councillor Frangi. Any further discussion? Calling for the question, third reading, recorded vote required. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Unanimously. And next item, please.
Bylaw number 7309, which is an amendment to the animal control bylaw regarding impound regulations.
First reading only. Councillor Lupke, or was that Councillor Chaboyer?
Thank you, Your Worship. This actually goes back to a notice of motion I gave in February of 2020. So, long-awaited bylaw amendment. So I move that bylaw number 7309 to amend animal control bylaw number 5900 with respect to impound regulations be read a first time.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Chaboyer. And again, first reading, not normally debatable, so we will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item, please.
Bylaw number 7310, which is an amendment to the Southwest Brandon Secondary Plan bylaw 7080.
Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that the bylaw 7310 to amend the Southwest Brandon Secondary Plan bylaw number 7080 be read a first time.
Seconder, please. Councillor Lupke. Again, first reading, not debatable. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item, please.
Bylaw number 7311, which is to rezone property located at 2210 Maryland Avenue.
And is that probably Councillor Brown's ward, but go ahead, Councillor Berry.
Thank you. That bylaw number 7311 to rezone 2210 Maryland Avenue from DR Development Reserve to EI Educational and Institutional and CG Commercial General be read a first time.
Seconder, please. Councillor Parker. Again, first reading. We won't debate until next time. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item, please.
Bylaw number 7312, which is to authorize the borrowing of funds for the renovation of the basement of 638 Princess Avenue.
Motion, please. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that bylaw number 7312 to provide for the borrowing and expenditures of funds to provide for the expenditures and borrowing of funds for the purpose of renovating approximately 433 square meters of space in the lower level of the A.R. McDermott Building at 638 Princess Avenue to be utilized by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police as a backup operations communications center to be read a first time.
Seconder, please. Councillor Chaboyer. Again, first reading, not normally debatable. We'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next item, please.
Bylaw number 7313, which is the authorization of the service sharing agreement with the City of Brandon, RM of Cornwallis, and VBJ Developments.
And Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Worship. I move that bylaw number 7313 to authorize the execution of service sharing agreement between the City of Brandon and the RM of Cornwallis and VBJ Developments Limited for the provision and extension of city water services be read a first time.
And seconder, please. Councillor Lupke. Again, first reading, not normally debatable, so we're going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. However, on an unusual basis, we're going to do second reading of this bylaw tonight and then withhold the third for upcoming meeting. Go ahead, Councillor Berry.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. I move that the bylaw be read a second time.
Seconded by Councillor Lupke. And mover wish to speak.
We've had quite a bit of discussion about this already tonight, so I think everybody's well aware what this one's about.
That's right, but based on the bylaw, we certainly would entertain any discussion that any member of council did want to have. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just for a point of clarity, the second reading on this is just as a result of the timeline that's required for the developer. Just because, like you say, it is out of. It's not a normal practice to go from first to second. So
we do have a special meeting coming up, which time we will entertain third reading as a means of given the fact that we only have one regular city council meeting per month in the summer, does some development matters, periodically not sufficient, so, and we will entertain a special meeting in order to keep things going. So that's the case here. So Clerk's Department has recommended we do first and second tonight, and then we'll do third at a subsequent meeting. I suppose we could have easily done first tonight and done second and third at the next.
But this does give council an opportunity to debate the terms of the agreement or the bylaw prior to it coming back for final reading.
Okay. So again, our administration doing everything they can to make things as efficient and obstacle-free as possible for us. So, thank you. Any further discussion? Going to call for the question then on second reading. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item, please.
File number 7314, which is to close a portion of 13th Street North located north of Stickney Avenue.
That Councillor Cameron. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll do this one on behalf of Councillor Desjardins here. I move that bylaw number 7314 to close 13th Street North, located north of Stickney Avenue and conveyed to the City of Brandon to be consolidated with 1309 Stickney Avenue be read a first time.
Seconder, please. Councillor Parker. And again, first reading, we just get the process started. So we will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item, please.
Giving of notice, Your Worship.
Any giving of notice this evening? Seeing none, next item, please.
A motion to adjourn would be in order.
Councillor Barry, seconded by Councillor Chaboyer. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. It was a pretty efficient meeting.